Hi, and welcome to another brand new episode of Live from the Pool House. We are live from the Pool House. I am one of your hosts, TL Foster, and I don't like them big old book words. And I am joined by my co-host,
Compton's own Sonya with attitude here.
and we are joined by a special guest. I'm gonna let them introduce themselves.
Hey, I'm Funke. I do some writing and I do some streaming and make some music. Do a bunch of stuff online.
Yeah. Funke is another person that I met doing the Giant Bomb thing.
Yes.
But they to say someone is talented, Funke is one of the most talented people I've ever met.
Stop.
And it was really cool because you had started doing the I think the day after you were doing a Minecraft set
concert thing, yeah.
Yeah, and I one because I'm old and busted. I didn't understand. I was like, wait, people do that. But then when I was listening to it, I was like, oh, what? This is dope. I've never seen anything like this. And then you did your stuff. I want to say your the band you do. Is it your band is Cat Dog or?
Yeah, it's our music duo. We do a bunch of genres, but yeah.
Yeah, it's just and then your writing is tremendous.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
So yeah, I've been when I was I want to get people on, I was like, oh, I have to get them on. This is definitely this is something that we have to do.
I said this earlier, but I was so hyped when you reached out to me. I'm like, yes, this is a show that I watched so much in my childhood. Just I don't even know I was still on. It was reruns and stuff, and out of order. But I was just this is so funny.
Well, yeah. So we always ask, what everyone their connection is to the show. So, like I said, you watched this when you were younger. So, for a little bit behind the curtain for everybody, so Funke and Sonya are both Canadians, right?
Yeah.
So it's something that you would catch
poutines and moose and stuff.
So is this something that you would catch on, the CDC or whatnot?
Yeah.
CBC mostly. It would. I don't know if it was the same with you in your area because Funke is from Ontario and I'm from Manitoba, and CBC kind of has different. The national ones are still the same, but CBC Manitoba is different from CBC Ontario. But we used to have it on right after The Simpsons and right before the news started. So that's around 5:30 in the afternoon or something, and it was one of my mom's favorite shows.
I'm pretty sure it was on YTV for me. I don't know, it came on later in the evening and I was just oh, the show's on. The one thing that I didn't like was that it was out of order and it'd be season 1 and then season 3 or whatever and well,
right.
How are you expecting me to keep up with this plot? But I guess most of it is just contained in the episode, but still I was stuff looks different and characters change too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I think this episode that we're doing, I think it's kind of emblematic of that. I have been railing on the Carlton-Will relationship. I don't think it's this stuff that I remember. Because, as we get later in the seasons, we kind of see them more of, brotherly instead of adversarially.
Yes.
But I think this is the first episode where we finally kind of see that connection.
Yes.
So, I think this is a great episode to...
Yeah,
do that.
I wrote that down too. This episode is the epitome of the Carlton-Will dynamic because his preppiness is at stake during this whole thing. His reputation and everything he stands for is actually they're betting on it this time, which is such a big deal for them.
Oh yeah, it's one of the the first episodes that really gets into the great category. I think that's really because this episode is just enjoyable from front to back. So I just love it.
Yeah, I think we haven't done a best of for the season because we're getting close to the end of the season. I think this might be my favorite episode this season.
Yeah, it's just really good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I might also really like some other episodes, the Black History Month episode or the Black History episode might be one of my favorites as well. But this one's pretty enjoyable while having a bit of the class consciousness in it. I just like that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Sonya, what is this episode that we have been kind of maneuvering around.
So we are watching season 1, episode 23, 72 Hours, which first aired March 11th, 1991. It was directed by Rea Kraus, who directed a few episodes of Living Single and the Wayans Brothers. And it was also written by Rob Edwards, who wrote a few earlier episodes. So this episode, I'm sleeping on the floor.
That's the best line. I wrote that line down too. Yes. That sequence.
Yeah, it's really perfectly timed. I love that.
It's just there's so many moving. We'll get there when we get to the
Yeah.
part. It's just the choreography and the blocking in this episode. There's just so many moving parts that just seem so seamless. Like it's so much. It's such a fun episode.
Oh yeah, I love it. So this episode begins with quite possibly the whitest version of Brick House I've ever heard, which Jazz and Will agree on when they come in bursting into tears laughing at Carlton's Glee Club. I guess they are like some sort of. But yeah,
acapella group thing.
Yeah, it was like it came off as like. Carlton teaching them the song rather than or they did not know or had never heard the song before. I guess I don't know. Like just the awkwardness of it was just embarrassing to me.
Yeah.
It very much reminds me of like the thing that started happening, like when I first graduated high school, where you'd get like it's like the Jonathan Colton Baby's Got Back, like the white guy acoustic guitar. Like cover of a rap song or something like that.
I was thinking about that with The Box, especially with like Roddy Ricch. Like,
you
guys see that one on Twitter? I remember I was like, oh my gosh. Like,
yeah. Oh my god.
Why are you doing this?
Right. And like it's just. Oh no, go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just thinking about somebody doing a version of like Nelly's Hot in Here, like like doing like a Mumford and Sons version of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just get an acoustic like so hot in here.
I was like, good gracious, that ass is bodacious. Oh man, we're gonna get copyright strike. Okay, go on.
Well, it's a podcast. We can, as long as it's not like more than 30 seconds of a song.
Yeah.
But no, it's just like they always like some versions of this stuff. Like it always like it kind of irks me. Like it's not like I'm not like I'm offended. It's just like it's to steal the line from that SNL bit. It's like raisins in a potato salad. It's just it just doesn't seem right. And like Brick House is like it's a song that just like it's funky. It just like it swings right, and it's just like to break it down, just like she's a brick house. It's just like oh man, it's just like audio mayonnaise, and it's just like I can't deal with it.
It reminds me of that quote Little Richard had, where he said that that like when Elvis stole their music, it was a lot better for white girls to be screaming over Elvis than it was for them to be screaming over black guys. Mm-hmm. So it just reminded me of that context where it's like this music is only acceptable from certain types of people, if that makes sense. And that always drove me nuts. It's just like
and you wonder why they like decide to cover those songs. Like why aren't they doing their own songs? Like why aren't they working on their own stuff? Because like I do also feel that TL like that just like something's weird here. Like I don't know why you're doing this. Like you could be just make your own little indie song if you want to do that. Like don't be taking black people's things and like trying to morph it into something else. Like it just feels off.
Yeah, the only good time I thought that happened was when John Cena had that entrance at WrestleMania. I think it was in WrestleMania when they were in New Orleans, where he had the band open for him. That was one of the coolest entrances ever, because it was like the marching band, and then they played the intro, they did the drums, and then all they did was like do the your time is up, my time is now. That was the coolest
instrumental
thing.
of it.
Yeah,
it's well. See, I love that. 'Cause I love black bands because like I'm a huge. When it comes to music, I love percussion and bass. Like it's just, it's just like it speaks to me and it just moves me. So like stuff like that where it is very heavy brass because you're just trying to get that sound like that kind of like that digital sound. I'm so bad. I'm not the musician. Okay, like I'm trying to like, but it's just like being able to like produce that. It always is fun. So like the John Cena thing, like, that's one of my favorite moments. But it's not like John Cena's appropriating. I think the one that everyone gives a pass to is like the Alien Ant Farm version of
Smooth Criminal.
Yeah. which like I never liked it just because it's like, okay, but you could have Michael Jackson could have just did that song and you could have been fine with it. You guys could have made your own fun kind of song. Like, I get doing tributes, but like it always feels weird. And I don't know if it goes both ways because Dolly Parton was the first person who wrote "I Will Always Love You," but I always know it as the Whitney Houston song.
Yeah. Well, that's funny you bring that up because Elvis trying to steal everything. Elvis was originally going to record "I Will Always Love You," but he told Dolly, "Okay, if I take it, I get half the rights to the song," which she was like, "Well, bull to that, like no bloody way." And so she thought it was like the biggest like disappointment of her career until Whitney bought it and made her like funded basically all of Dollywood out of it. And so it's just like it's weird because I find that like for lack of a better word, please Twitter, don't hurt me, white guys ruin a lot of good things. If that makes sense.
It's not wrong. Like, that's not a wrong statement.
You're
like,
right. Yeah.
Like, the only good one is John Cena because he brought that marching band in for his entrance and stuff, and I'm like,
I will fight for Tony Hawk though. He's still there.
He's good. Yeah, he's one of the real ones. Okay, we're saving Tony Hawk, John Cena, Bono for me, and Dolly Parton.
Yes. Of course, Dolly Parton. Absolutely, Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton's great. Like, Dolly Parton. It's just been really great, and since we're on this music kick, or whatever, I want to talk about. So those the two kids, right? The guys who became viral because like they're listening to music and they're kind of putting things through. Like, they're starting to make hits. Like, so Dolly Parton, like a lot of kids, especially like a lot of black kids, didn't listen to Jolene. I remember like how those kids, like when they heard Jolene, they're like, "Yo, wait, what?" I remember listening to Jolene, like having never been a huge Dolly Parton fan because when I was younger, I was like, well, I would never like country. Yeah. Because, like, no one ever presented country for me to like. But then when I would go back and listen to Jolene, I was like, yo, no, this stuff, it slaps, right? And it has so much roots into, like, Southern church. And I didn't think that white people had church like we had church. Yeah. So that a lot of that soul that we kind of have in our singing, that's, like, the basis for R&B and stuff like that, like, I didn't think that would also be replicated by white people. And Dolly Parton was the first person where I was like, no, they could do this too. And then I found out a lot of like people from the 70s that I like Michael McDowell, and there was somebody else I just recently found out was white. It's like, oh no, they're out there. You just have to go and find them.
Yeah. Well, Dolly's one of those cool people too because she's one of those Christian people that walks the walk. She's not like Christian to make herself look better. She takes the idea of like treating her fellow man as important as she is, and that's one of the things I really love about her. Specifically because she has this thing called the Imagination Library where she sends a book to a kid every month until they turn 5, like a picture book and stuff. And I found out that the reason she does this is because when she was growing up, her dad never learned to read. So she started the Imagination Library in honor of her father. And I'm just like, oh, that's so sweet. And so she sends a few books to my home reserve. So like I always send my love to her. She is the coolest. And she does really good work. Yeah, like, and she can play guitar really well with those like press-on nails, so it's like I can't do that. Yeah,
that's
she's really good.
A really good skill. I didn't know that Bobby Caldwell, what she want to do for love was white for a long time. I was like, what? The cover on that was just it was like a silhouette of a figure. I was like, okay, whatever. But then I saw a picture. I'm like, whoa.
Right. Well, it's just like Hall & Oates. I didn't realize until I was older, like, oh, this is a band of 2 white dudes. I'm like, you sure about that? Like, She's Gone is like you could have told me Lionel Richie performed that. He's like, yeah, I get it. Like, I understand. Like, but it sucks. Like that music, like those performers, those white performers who were doing that went away. And I think that's why a lot of this stuff where they reappropriate black music and they kind of whitewash it, for lack of a better word, why that stuff sucks is because there isn't an earnestness to it, right? Like right or wrong, if you like Eminem or don't, like I'm not here to debate you, but the reason why he has such a mass appeal even to black people, is that he is authentic. Like he's not Vanilla Ice, like pretending to live in this world. Like, no, I want to take a part of it. It's the reason why John Cena is authentic. Like, because like the story with John Cena is he didn't want to like become a rapper, but he loves rap music, and he like would freestyle on the bus. And I think there was like a European trip. He was getting ready to get fired, and like he was just freestyling in the back. And then Stephanie McMahon heard him. She was like, "Wait, can you do that? Can you like do that on a wrestling show?" And he's like, "I mean, yeah, I guess." And he started doing that. It got over, but then like I said, it's something that he likes to do. So he's only done one album and then one track after that. So he does his theme song. He did his theme song previously.
I did not know he was a rapper at all. What?
Yes, he did an album. I tell people all the time, there's an album he did. It's called The Champ Is Here. It came out in 2006.
And it had really good producers, too.
Yes. There's a song called Bad Man.
Oh, it sounds good.
Fucking so good. And I'm just like, that's because like I always thought like the joke was like, oh well, he's the rapper and he comes out and he does his rap. He does his rap promos and they're corny because they have to be. Yeah. It's in out. You have to do a certain cadence and go through. But then his like the song like time is now, like it is a really good, like if you actually listen to the rap song, it's a really good rap song and it doesn't break. But then like you listen to the album, he has like actual tremendous rap songs, which is like opposed to someone like Randy Savage who has an album, but all those songs are trash. like John Cena is a really good rapper, and it's like, but it's someone
I just
he
saved this album. I found it on Spotify, and
yes,
I will be listening to this after.
Basic Thugonomics is really good too. I don't mind that song. Yeah,
and then like so he did do a song recently, I think it was 2 years ago, with Wiz Khalifa.
Yeah.
Which the funny part is like the opening part of that track is John Cena's like, they should have never left me in the suit in the booth with Wiz Khalifa. And I'm like, all right, let's go. I'm in. I'm just all the way in.
This is killing me.
Oh, and Cena apparently appeared on T-Bozz's album, T-Boz from TLC. He appeared on a track on her album. Let me look this up.
Wow.
This guy's featuring. He's everywhere.
Man, this is
John
Cena's Cena hour.
John Cena's like, I act, I wrestle, I also feature on albums. That's what he does.
He's literally doing everything. What the?
A Renaissance man.
A true Renaissance man.
Oh, but back to the episode.
Yes.
So, as we were mentioning, I think off mic, this is one of the first episodes where we outright see Carlton having to defend his status as a black man to Will and Jazz. Mm-hmm. So, as we know, Carlton has grown up in Bel-Air, and his first real racist encounter was when he and Will were pulled over in an earlier episode by the police. And so, the big conflict of this episode is a bet between Will and Carlton to see if Carlton can survive in Jazz's neighborhood of Compton, which I almost said like the Dr. Dre album. Sorry.
City of Compton. Yeah. No, so this episode is always very weird to me. And Funky, I would love to hear if you had any kind of experience. It's on you like yours kind of a little bit different, but kind of the same, right?
Similar.
Being indigenous. This has always been really weird to me because it's such a younger man's fallacy that ends up happening here, right? Will and Carlton are in this thing of like, how do you quantify your blackness? How do you examine your blackness? And we're in a really weird spot just in life in general where it's like, hey, we kind of now know that it doesn't matter who you are. Like, you black. Like, police don't care. Like, people who are racist don't care. Like, you're black, okay. But growing up, like, there were times where I could feel alienated because I don't have, like, for lack of a better word, a black accent or speaking AAV, but I grew up on a military base, right? Like when I first started school, my family was like, I didn't grow up around my family. I didn't grow up in the South, which is why I don't have a Southern accent. Like, my brother has a really bad one. Not bad, but he has a really like pronounced one because he grew up in the South. But he's probably smarter than I am, but I don't have that like air to it. And just in the scenarios that I've been in, I just haven't had a chance to. So there's always been, like, I have dealt with people who are like, oh, well, you're not black enough. the funny thing is, the kicker thing is, it's usually white people who love to say, "Oh well, I'm blacker than you," and I'm always like,
"Oh yeah,
get me started on that. That is annoying."
It's like, no, because I can speak well and you can't. Don't think you're not. You're blacker than me.
Well, it comes from that idea too. Like, there's a quote in the episode that we'll probably get to later where Will is accused of acting pale. And, like, I know white people would be like, oh, yeah, like, you were insulting us by saying that TL is acting white. I'm like, it's not the same as a white person saying, like, oh, I'm blacker than you. Yeah. I'm like, there's a lot more behind that statement than it is. Like, because I don't believe in reverse racism. I think it's stupid because there's no power dynamic or, like, you are able to appropriate my culture because of your whiteness. Like, I can't do the same for you. And so, yeah, like, that comes up a lot in this episode, which I really enjoy. Like, the idea of what makes you a black man in this episode. And I love that.
It is twisted, like, being a black person and, like, having to prove your blackness, especially in spaces where there aren't other black people. Like, that is just, like, it feels like you're representing a whole race. Like, and you're in a room, like, playing Halo with friends. Like, it doesn't make sense. And it's, like, horrible that all that pressure is put on people, especially young people, because that's when, like, these things happen. I feel like it hasn't happened to me since I was a kid, but, like, when I was a kid, it was so frustrating. And, like, just, like, you have these mental battles, like, what does it mean to be black then? Like, what do people value, and, like, what matters, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think the thing that's frustrating about it is it does nothing but ends up with an alienization of black people within black people, right? So I think that's where you get a lot of, like, black people who are very quick to say, like, oh, well, such is ghetto or such is blah, right? And it's like, it's the thing, and I've been saying this for years now. It's the reason why, like, I really don't like Chris Rock a lot. Because the black people versus N-words thing, right?
Yeah.
Which, like, this is what's bred from. Because it's like, well, how do you quantify who's a good black person, who's not? Because I speak, I don't speak in, like, again, to use, like, negative terms, like ebonics or stuff like that. Does that mean I'm less intelligent? I'm more intelligent than someone who does, Yeah,
and also, who are you separating black people for? Like, why are you even doing that? Like, what? Like, you're making it like you're setting up a system for non-black people to judge black people. Like, why would you even, like, try to separate yourself from, like, the bad black people? Like, it's such a dumb ideology, and, like, it separates black people from other black people, and it, like, gives non-black people who are racist tools against black people. It's there's so many issues with it, and it happens so often.
Well, and it goes the opposite way too, because if you are, like, a person of color or a black person, you have to live up to such a high standard that you can never ever complete. Like, because, like, with Obama, for example, when Obama was in office, like, every single thing he did was, like, criticized, even though he was, like, basically the perfect person in the history of time, at least, like, not like, in my opinion, but, like, stuff that wouldn't like lift an eyebrow if Trump did it was something that, like, people would massacre Obama for, or the fact that, like, his daughter, like, was pictured, like, smoking weed or something. It's stuff like that. Like, it's you both feel like you have to be the representative of your race while also being told you're not enough of a black person to be a black person, which is something that always comes up when you're a person of color. Like, I hate that. Like, as a Native person, it's come up because being nerdy is not Native, or being a girl that's into science is not Native. And so it's something that, like, I really connect with in the show, because, as I said before, like, I didn't have a lot of Native representation on TV. So seeing Carlton and Will struggle with this identity problem was something I really connected to.
And I think this also, again, like, I bring this up every time, it sucks that tragedy took it, but I think that was one of the great things I loved about when the gaming community had, we're like, hey, let's put more black, voices out there. Because I'm going to tell you, like, I started doing this stuff. I started doing gaming stuff like 12 years ago. And there was no one that was visible. Like, and it was a thing where I honestly would have never thought about doing this stuff if we didn't have like Antista, who we've had on previously. Like, if he wasn't doing his podcast, where I felt like, oh, these are people just hanging out. But it never. It still was like, it was like, okay, well, this is weird because I don't see anyone who looks like me. And now, thankfully, we have so many people who are out there, like Ka with Spawn on Me, like Rihanna, who we've had on previously, like Funke, like Nikki, like Austin Walker, Gita Jackson. Like, we have so many great people now who are building these communities, who are like front facing, that I think is so important. But it's also, like you said, all these people can't just be the arbiter of like perfect, because they're not going to be perfect, right?
Yeah.
We all make mistakes, and it's so frustrating because if a black person makes a mistake, especially in the industries that we are in, or like you said, Sonya, any person of color makes a mistake, that is an indictment across the board.
Yeah,
right?
It's like, why did we give them that opportunity? Look at how they screwed it up. And it's just like,
it's honestly so tiring. Like, getting to any point where like you're recognized for anything in games is so hard as a black person too. Like, I don't know, there's like, so like if you look at the staffs of almost every game site, like most of the people are just like all white people. Like even the sites that I think are doing the best and most like diverse work and covering things that matter to a lot of communities, like there's still a problem of like so much whiteness in those spaces, and it's kind of like weird. I don't know how it's still going on right now. But yeah, on to the point of like, when a black person does something that people don't like I reviewed SpongeBob a while ago, and I gave it a low score, like the most recent SpongeBob game, because it wasn't a good game. I didn't like it, and I gave my opinion.
Right.
And then I got a couple of messages that were like just racist, just like a flurry of slurs and stuff, and I'm like, okay, like what does this have to do with SpongeBob? It feels like you have some other issues you need to work out here. But yeah, it's like you get like a racist flurry, but white writers don't get any of that. Like, that's a whole like form of harassment that just doesn't exist for them, and is a part of like what makes the turnaround in games so quick. Like, especially with people of color and stuff. Like, you see people here for a little while, and then like they do something else, because that is a thing that like just messes with people's mentals a lot, and it's pretty twisted. Like, harassment in games is horrible, especially for marginalized folks. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's something that's coming up with WWE right now, where Renee Young is leaving like WWE right now. Like, she's a commentator. She's a woman. One of my favorite people because she's Canadian, right? She used to be on TSN.
On the Score.
She used to be on what was it? Aftermath. And it was
Aftermath with Arthur Raquel and Jimmy Corderas. Yeah.
Well, she was amazing on it, and I think that like WWE totally dropped the ball with her, because she had the potential to be like, in my opinion, she had the potential to be another JR, and I adored her, and she was getting so much hate all the time, and like there's only so much you can put up with in terms of especially the type of fans that are into wrestling, like, or like I'm winking at the camera right now, but it's like, we can't be expected to put up with this so much, even if some of the stuff is good. Like, luckily for me, like, of the 100 comments I get on things, like, only 2 are probably really bad, but it's still like those 2 really take a lot out of you, and it's really difficult. Yeah, it's just like, why do we have to deal with this and be expected to? Like, why can't people protect us from it?
Right. And like, it's like I said, I think the thing is, I think it comes from a backlash where, as gamers, just in general, it's a marginalized group, because everyone has been telling you your whole life the hobby you love, the multi-billion-dollar hobby you love is nerdy, right? Like, that's what everyone does. So people who've gotten into games, regardless of race and creed, like, or gender, already feel like they are behind the 8 ball. But the thing is, hurt people hurt, right? And as soon as because when I saw that all that SpongeBob stuff happened, and I just remember being like, yo, this is a SpongeBob game, and like, I know half of you are in your like maybe mid-20s, like, what are you doing, right? But what it comes from is, and this has been like what I feel like has been dealing with reviews forever. It's everyone is looking for validation, and honestly, you could have in your written review said, "Hey, this is probably perfect. If you like this is like for you." But as an objectively, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
All they look is for that number and why you didn't agree with them. Right? It's the thing with the Anita Scar season stuff where she did tropes in women in gaming, which I always like. There's things that I was like, okay, I would push back on this, but I understand where you're coming from, and I think there's an important conversation to have.
Yes.
And as soon as people say that, well, why are all men blah? And the thing is, no one's saying that. No one's telling you your opinion is bad.
Yeah.
No one's saying that you guys are like.
Except for
but
me.
It's just, yeah, it's just like don't engage like that, because honestly, if your idea is I'm going to bully somebody into liking what I like, it will never happen. And it just makes you sound like an idiot.
That's such like a silly mentality to have. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I'm like, I envision a world in gaming where like people don't have to be scared of that looming giant group of like capital G gamers that are just like super racist and like angry and like just against anything that like has a woman in it and stuff. Like I don't know. Hopefully we'll get away from those people.
Yeah,
Yes.
the sort of people who make like a 3-hour video on YouTube telling you why you're wrong.
I don't understand. Every time I see that runtime, I'm like 7 hours?
Yeah.
What can you be so like? After a minute, I'm like, okay, I'm tired. I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Well,
my dude.
Well, like unrecorded, our episodes go for what, like maybe an hour and a half, like an hour 50. Like, and we're discussing things we love. Like, I don't know how we could go like 2 hours or like 2 or more hours discussing something we didn't like. Yeah. Like, I could probably do it about race, but it would be in the context of how things could be better in terms of like letting people tell their own stories and stuff. So it's just, I just think that it comes from the idea that some white people are scared that if people of color, black people, women get equality, then we will be treating white people the way that they treated us. And that's where it comes from. Like, they're terrified about that idea of like that equality means justice. I guess.
That equality means equality. Like, we've treated you guys like shit, so of course you're going to treat me. And it's like, we're just asking to be treated the same. Yeah. We're not asking to say, hey, you're going to pay back everything you did. Just treat us the same.
Yeah. But I do have a brief history of Compton if you guys wanted to hear it.
Yes.
So, following the Watts riots in 1965, crime in Compton rose sharply as more middle-class residents fled. By 1970, it had the highest crime rate in the state of California. Compton's violent reputation reached the national spotlight in the late 1980s with the prominent rise of local gangster rap groups Compton's Most Wanted and NWA, the latter of which released the album Straight Out of Compton in 1988. The city became notorious for gang violence, particularly caused by the Bloods and the Crips. After years of decline in crime, Compton's murder rate skyrocketed in 2004 with racial conflicts between blacks and Latinos. 2005 was the city's deadliest year on record when the city's murder rate reached 72 killings with a total population of 90,000 residents. The spike was the highest since 1991 when the city had more than 100,000 residents. The rise in homicides frightened residents who had long lived with high levels of gang violence but had seen a downturn in violent crime in recent years. I really like Straight Outta Compton, by the way, so. But I am the whitest Native person who likes that song, so I'll leave it to you guys.
Yeah, no, so like, and the thing with, I always get wary when they talk about like crime statistics with this, because there's always a social economic,
Oh yeah, exactly. It's also one of the
background
poor
with it.
neighborhoods I was reading.
Compton, East LA, like a lot of that area is poor, and a lot of these kind of statistics are very high because of police interaction in those areas. If you actually look, I'm trying to think, there was a really good documentary on it, but like the policing in Compton and Watts, actually it was the O.J. Simpson's documentary. They were talking about it. Because they were talking about, like, the fact that OJ would have never gotten a black juror to convict him. Mm-hmm. Because, like, the policing in Watts were... it's really easy, and, like, Wikipedia can really easily, like, quantify it as, like, oh, this is Bloods and the Crips. Like, no, these were people who were living with police brutality in low economic, living, like living in a big city, especially somewhere like Los Angeles, like the pay discrepancy is such a high, high thing. A lot of people, and this is where I always like I push back on the gang narrative. 'Cause a lot of people do this stuff because like when you have economic, we have economic like strife and non-reliability, like you go to gangs because that's the only way you can make sure you get fed.
Yeah.
Make sure you have clothing, and you can
you have a
yourself.
place to live, like anywhere.
Right. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, and then like you said, the reason why you do see another spike in 2004, 2005, again, we have a big thing where a lot of redlining was starting to be pushed onto Latino communities. Like that, around that time frame is when we start getting a lot more of the conversations of who's legal, who's not. You have your stuff with ICE here in the United States. So yeah, again, you have another downtrodden minority group who's now pitted against each other. So Watts is a bad neighborhood. Compton's a bad neighborhood because of things that are outside factors than the people in the neighborhood, and that's why I always that's the one thing like about this episode. I'm like you guys are like, oh, that neighborhood's bad. It's like, yeah, but what are you guys doing to help this? Like, that's the thing where it's like that. But I will give them, and we talk about it, I will give them that like. Vivian did not say I'm not going to. She's like, no, I'm going to go to Compton, and I'm going to treat them like their mom. So it does seem like they are taking a part of that, but that's the reason why you kind of see that discrepancy and why those are quote unquote bad neighborhoods.
Yeah, like there's a lot of bad, like quote unquote bad neighborhoods in Winnipeg too, but it's mostly because Native people live there and poor people live there. Like it's always the poor and people of color that makes a neighborhood bad. Like it was the same thing when I was in Sydney, Australia. I was like, I would love to meet some Native people who are from Australia, what's the neighborhood? And then they were like, oh, well, all the blacks live in Redfern, but you don't go there. And I was like, so, like, just the way they said blacks, like, I know that the Aussie Aborigines use blacks as their term too, but the way white people talked about it, the way they put their voice on blacks was the worst thing I ever heard. I'm like, man, this is like Canada 50 years ago. Jeez. If Canada is racist, Australia is really racist. So don't go there. Well, go there, but like beware.
Yeah, it's honestly a lot. Yeah, I don't know. Like this was weird to see how. I guess I haven't seen the show in a bit, but I didn't realize how rich the family was.
Yeah,
and they even like make jokes about it with like Jeffrey being like, "Hey, can I get a raise?" Like multiple times. But yeah, it was like weird to see them go and kind of like make this a game, chilling in this neighborhood that is worse than theirs, I guess.
Yeah,
like more dangerous.
especially for Will. Like Will, like grew up in this type of neighborhood, and the fact that he treats it like it's just like him keeping it real, like really bothered me because I'm like, dude, like, well, I guess he's acting like a 16-year-old, so like,
true.
Yeah, he wants to be hard. Like, it's what was that line from White and Nerdy? I want to roll with the gangsters. That's what he reminded me of.
Well, it's like I've seen people who have been in those scenarios who gravitate towards that. Like I had a cousin who lives in a really bad part of Miami, and his dad had moved him with my mom, and we lived in like the suburban of all suburbs, right? And he was very adamant, like, I don't want to be here. Like, this isn't where I'm from. So there is like an attitude of like, no, this isn't where I'm from. But I never seen it like look as a game. But also, like, Jazz's apartment doesn't look too terrible. Yeah. Like the whole episode, like, oh, this is awful. I'm like, yo, that looks way better than my first apartment. Like,
Right.
Well, it gets worse in later seasons. Like there's a scene in Jazz's apartment where there's a random barrel in later seasons where that's full of something, and Will sits next to it, and all of a sudden you hear a toilet flush and something slams into that barrel, and he's like, so it gets worse as the show goes on.
What's in the barrel?
Yeah, some sort of mystery-goo, I think.
Oh.
But so we're back at the house in this episode, and to cover their visit to Compton, Will and Carlton lie to the parents about a field trip for school and guilt trip Uncle Phil into signing off on the forms that they apparently found that he tossed away because he was totally forgot about it. And I love this Carlton episode because we get to see Alfonso act his butt off, particularly in that scene where he plays the downtrodden son forgotten by his busy dad. Like, it was just really sweet. Like, just the guilt they put on Uncle Phil was so funny to me.
Yeah, no, he really like snapped into a different character. I thought he was gonna be a bad actor because he was talking about how much he hated lying and like how much he didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
But when it was time to lie, like this guy was on it, like Gaslight Central. I don't know how he did it so well.
It was so good. I just love that scene with like how Vivian is just like
how did you
like
forget?
Philip, what did you like? You really need to examine your priorities. Like, what the hell? Like, because it was that awesome little bit of things. Like, you know, when you try to get your parents to you try to pitch your parents against each other. That was this whole scene, and I just love that.
And it played out so well. They didn't even suspect a thing. Like. Until Will told them later what like about the bet and all the like specifications of him being in Compton, like they were like, oh, he's on a trip, like
he's like in San Francisco, where is he? Like, and it's like it was so weird to me though, because like I've never been on field trips of that like type of what's the word I'm looking for, that type of scope, like to go to like a field trip of that level would be something that. Well, I guess they go to academies, so that's probably why it's easier. But, like, I guess, like, if you lived in that sort of area, you'd go to, some, like, different types of field trip type things. But, yeah, like, it was... Yeah. How many field trips do they go on? That's so weird to me.
I mean, so we used to do a lot of field trips here in Florida, but I've never done... Like, that would be, like, the equivalent of my family being like, oh, yeah, you can go to Miami for 72 hours. Like... They were like, no, that's not happening. Yeah. I think the most I did I will definitely tell this story on a bonus episode on the podcast one of these days. I went on a debate trip my freshman year to Tallahassee. That's like a 2-hour drive from where I'm from. And let's just say high schoolers are debaucherous, not me, but one of the teams got kicked out because of an orgy.
Oh my god!
And I was like,
no.
And I remember hearing about that Tallahassee Lincoln. I will never forget that story. That has been over. That's almost coming on 20 years now. 20 years now. Wow. It's been a while, but that is
a bonkers debate trip. You gotta drop this bonus episode.
Donate the $5 to the Patreon.
Right? You get the bonus.
Donate
episode.
Right now.
But yeah, no, I've never. I'm not gonna lie. I would have messed that up completely.
Yeah.
I would have messed it up completely.
Have you ever lied to your parents? Like.
Yes.
In this context?
Like I can't say like I haven't. I have, but it was never like nothing this big. No. It was usually something like, oh hey, I'm going to get in trouble, so I'm just going to say I didn't do it. Another
smart move.
Another thing, like one time when I just graduated high school and I went to this party, and underage drink. Kids, don't underage drink. Don't do that. But I did it, and I snuck into my house. Now, what I forgot is that my garage door, because I was living in the garage at the time, has an alarm that goes throughout the house. Every entry door had an alarm going throughout the house. So I opened it up, and my mom opens the garage door because they had been waiting for me. At the time, I did not have a key. So they were waiting for me to come home, and I didn't go straight home.
Was it late?
Like I said, it was 3:00 in the morning. Mind you, I am 3 sheets to the wind. And my mom, she's grilling me, and I'm, apologizing. She stops. She's like, wait, are you drunk? And me, because I am a virtue of truth.
Yes.
Looked at her in the face and said, no, what are you talking about? She was not too happy.
Did she believe you?
No, absolutely not. Cause I reeked of vodka. So she was like, she's She's like, just go to bed. My dad's like, no, he needs to take a shower. So I go to take a shower. But before that, the kitchen is right there, and I have not eaten.
Oh,
I go to grab something from the kitchen.
The drunk chef.
My mom comes out of her room. Let's go in the garage. And I had to deal with a lot of phone calls because I lied. I've told a lot of really. And that's like the worst. But I'm telling like a little just dumb lies.
Yeah. Same with me. Like, I haven't done anything too crazy. Like, I was a total teetotaler. I stayed home all the time. So, like, the idea, I had, like, what was that Simpsons quote? How do I build that kind of cred? 10 years of honesty. So that was me. And so it's like, yeah, it was weird to me because I could never imagine sneaking. Like, I would maybe sneak out if I lived in the city, but, like, since I lived in, like, a small town, there wasn't really anything that I would want to do. So, like, I've never had this experience.
Yeah. I was always like, I just want to play some video games and stay home. So I don't really need to lie about doing too much outside.
I would lie about playing, like, Game Boy or Game Gear when I should have been sleeping or watching. Like, I think the biggest lie was, like, I would, because Conan O'Brien was on at 11:30 at night and it was on a school night, I would put my TV on the lowest volume, put a towel in the crack of the door so they couldn't see the glow of the TV, and, like, basically shove a pillow in my mouth to keep from laughing too loud when I was watching. So that was, like, the extent of my badness.
So that sounds like when I would watch HBO, and like if I knew like a spicy movie would come on. I don't know why I would do this, but every time like HBO has the opening, it's like the following movie, and I know they're gonna say rated R, but I would just go, the following movie is rated Jar. Like I don't know if I thought that if someone came by, it would be like, oh, he's watching a jar? Or he said the word
you
jar?
You tried to cover it up by saying jar?
Yes.
Well, speaking of Funky, I don't know if you had the same experience, because I might be a little bit older than you, but do you remember, like, Showcase on, like, Canadian channels? Like, if you went past a certain hour on Showcase, like, they would show really, really, like, illicit things, like nudity. Like,
oh my gosh.
That type of, like, Canadian art film that was basically just made for horny kids who were watching Showcase at 9:00 at night. But yeah, like it just reminds me of that, where people are like, I'm watching like an art film, Dad, it's nothing too gross. Like, oh my
I guess
God.
mine was when this channel called Teletoon had like Teletoon at night.
Oh right, yes.
And they would have just like, they would show Sin City. And my parents would be like, oh, he's watching Teletoon, and then go upstairs. And then, like, at, like, 9 o'clock, it'd be, like, Teletoon at night. And then the colors would go from, like, yellow and, like, vibrant to, like, black and white and, like, serious now.
You might see a boob.
There might be a boob and maybe blood? I don't know. Find out at 10:30. Yeah, so I didn't lie, but I was just like, Teletoon's on. I'm watching Teletoon.
Oh, so they, Will and Carlton make it to Jazz's place in Compton, where one of the guys hanging out is Tom Lister Jr., a.k.a. Tiny Lister, who you may remember from such roles as Zeus in No Holds Barred, the President in The Fifth Element, and the prisoner who did the right thing in The Dark Knight. I haven't ever seen Friday, so I don't know him from that.
So yeah, you should watch Friday. But he's Debo from Friday. That's Tiny Lister. Like, every time I see Tiny Lister, I'm just like, you're a much better actor than I want you to be, because people typecast you in these, like, roles, like, as big, dumb dude. Yeah. Like, in Debo and Friday, he's just, like, a menace. But, like, he's really fun in this episode.
He's really good. Like, he was really good in The Fifth Element, too. Like, like, that was my first experience of him, and other than this episode. And, like, he is a really good actor. Like, especially in that, in The Dark Knight. Because he plays the prisoner who throws the detonator out the boat window. That's who he plays. Right. And, like, he played it with a lot of soul. Like, I really like that. Like, he is... I guess he falls into the... what's the name of the guy who plays Machete in Spy Kids?
Danny Trejo?
Yeah, he falls into the same camp as Danny Trejo, where they are typecast because of how they look. And they actually are, like, better actors than they let on, so...
Danny Trejo, you remind me... I always want to tell people, it's like, if you don't think Danny Trejo can act, his voice acting as Enrique on King of the Hill...
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it is the complete different character than any Danny Trejo thing, and I'm just like, I want to put Danny Trejo in everything because like he can play like this very funny, pathetic like dad character, and you don't like if you look at him, he's like, oh no, that's Machete. Like that guy is like terrifying. He's like, oh hey, what are you doing? I'm like, yo, like where is this coming from? Like,
Well, speaking of
love
Danny Trejo, like he has like a dog rescue. Like he is like adorable little grandpa man now, and it's so cute because like he is all about like I think he opened like a taco stand too, like a while back. He's just trying to do good for the community, and like the fact that like he actually did grow up hard, and so when he went to prison, his big goal when he got out was to make sure that kids like him didn't end up in prison again, and so he's been doing a lot of work to advocate for like underprivileged kids getting more resources, all that sort of thing. And so I've always wanted him, if I do a movie about my life, to play my grandfather, even though he's Mexican and I'm not. But still, it's like, oh, it would be so cute to have him play my grandpa. Especially because he's shorter than you think he is.
Yeah.
Like, because Tiny
Yes.
Lister, despite his name, is actually a big, scary guy. So,
Right.
but Danny Trejo is like, what, 5'4", 5'5", like a really, really short guy.
Right. Well, I think some people can be short and wear their shortness like tall. Like I've met
Short
people who are like,
kings?
yeah, basically short kings. Yes, I've met people who are like you're taller than I thought, or you are way much shorter than I thought. Like I went and shot that movie with Aziz, and I didn't realize like Aziz is like 5'2". Like so when I first see Aziz, like I'm 5'11", so like I'm always used to being like medium height. Like I'm tall-ish. But then we were doing the shoot, and I was like, I'm the tallest person by like 4 or 5 inches. Like, this is dope. Like, I want to shoot all the movies here because I don't ever want to be the short person. I don't want to ever be short on the set.
Yeah. What were you shooting?
I shot a short film, so it's called Rafik Like Me. It's a short film that I wrote. I will say I'll say that whole process for us like an episode. Like we'll do a bonus episode where me and Sonya will talk about like kind of
Movies.
like going
Yeah.
into it. Yeah.
6
'Cause, like,
Tiny Lister is 6'5", and Danny Trejo is 5'6". So
oh,
just
look, they're
interrupt.
inverse. Yeah, they're inverse. But no, it was a really good film. It's a short film just like about friendship and stuff like that, and like it's just a really cool film. Yeah, it was just really weird to go into a set and be like, oh, I'm taller than everybody. Everybody reads a lot taller than they were. It's like, but I'm the tall one. It's
Yes.
great. I love it.
Being
Well,
the tallest one in the room is the best feeling. I
Oh,
love
yeah,
having
exactly.
short friends. It's like, hey guys, need me to get that up there? Oh, I got you.
Oh, I like being a tall girl for that reason too, because like everybody's always like trying to reach for like upper things, and I'm like, I got it. It's
Yes.
like, but
I have you. It's okay.
it's like thank you, queen. But I like feeling like an Amazon. But I didn't notice this the first few times I watched this episode. But when they get to Jazz's apartment, did you guys see that cute picture of Hillary that is hung on Jazz's wall?
No.
I did not until your notes. I didn't notice that until your notes. I'm going to go back and look at that now.
So it's by the door, like, cause he has they have a lot of like porn, like S&M stuff that obviously looks like it's hanging up, but there's like one really big like headshot picture of Hillary. It's really really cute. I like that. It was adorable. But I also other actors in that scene with the homies at Jazz's apartment. The Gucci bag salesman, Slick, is played by Miguel Nunez Jr., who was DJ in Street Fighter. So I just had to bring that up 'cause yeah.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
So Miguel A. Nunez Jr., his dad is actually, like when you look at the Black History cinema, his dad is actually the original Huggy Bear.
Really?
From Starsky and Hutch, yes. Miguel Nunez, Senior. So like he is kind of black film royalty.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's always really cool. Like when I see him and stuff, because like I said, he's such a really good comedic actor, and like it's just like John Witherspoon's son. I think he's also a junior, right? Like he's also a good actor, like John Witherspoon. So he was Pops in Friday. He did the voice of the granddad in in
Boondocks.
Boondocks, yes. Yeah. His son is also a really good actor as well.
Which one is that? Is that JD? Like John David and Alexander. Yeah, because JD does YouTube, right? Like,
yeah.
I've seen him in Dashi XP videos. So yeah, it's just like, and I love because JD is friends with Dashi, and Dashi has done references to Fresh Prince a few times. So it always makes me laugh whenever that happens. So, but yeah, like after a makeover by the guys at Jazz's house, C-Note is hooking them up with some sound financial advice and planning to head to MacArthur Park to sell Korean Gucci bags. So I only know of MacArthur Park due to the song and its appearance in the movie Volcano. So I'm like, I don't know if you guys know anything about MacArthur Park. But
I've never heard of it. I've never heard of MacArthur Park.
I just took it as like a bad area within a bad area. It seems like
it's like the worst area. Yeah.
Quite scared to go there. Yeah.
I want to talk about the hip hop flashcards.
Yes.
Like, okay, I get it. Like, it's corny that Carlton needs hip hop flashcards, but like, there are times where I'm online and I see stuff because I am now old. I am one of the olds now, so I see something and people say it and I'm like, what is that? Okay, Urban Dictionary.
Yeah, me too. I do
but
that
so
all the time.
What's great now is the thing that a lot of white people are doing is they're going back and taking old black words. So I can feel like I'm up to date. Like, so when people started saying simp out of nowhere, I was like, wait, excuse me, what? Like, that's a word my dad said, and it was old when he was saying that in the 90s. What do you mean this is now a thing everybody says? So, like, I'm just ready for it. Just keep on taking those old black words so I can be like, oh, yeah, I know about that.
I know this one already. Yeah.
Well, you don't need to give me context for that one. I got it.
It's like, I got you, boo. Sort of
it's really wild, especially like using Twitter semi-regularly. Even like you see a lot of the phrases that get picked up from black community and just the gay community as well, and meld into like its own Twitter speak. And I don't know, today actually I saw a couple of people just like including a whole list of like slang that's been used, like I guess repurposed from old black slang, and then being like, if you say any of this, you're stupid and like your opinion isn't valid. And I'm like, okay, first of all, you're a white person saying this, stop talking. Like, this isn't any of your business. Like, what are you talking about? And then I'm just like, well, it's so weird to see this language get like taken from what it originally was used for, and then like run to death on Twitter like every day or something. Like people just saying like spamming these words because they're like, it's funny, like I've heard it online. But it's just like a lack of understanding what the word even means. Like, did you see people saying like child on Twitter and stuff? Like,
and when white people read it, it's Chile. It's like
Chile.
No. Like
they be saying Chile. It's like you not even understand what you're saying. Like you're just putting a word there because you've seen people say the word. You don't know what it means.
Right.
It's
well, and that's the thing. It's like you could still speak and use like those words and spell it like how you're used to spelling regular words. Like the thing that freaks me out now is like seeing, especially like white women do it. Like they'll do the period, and child and all this other stuff. I'm like, but ma'am, you know you don't talk like this. It's like, you know, like in your everyday life, you don't talk like this. It doesn't make you cool. Like, you don't have to do this. Like,
don't.
I just want to go to these people just like, you never have to do this. You can just be yourself. Like, it's just like, it like I said, it always comes back. It's like when white people come back like, oh, you know, the N-word, blah, 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 blah. I tell people all the time, it's like, I love saying the N-word. I just like how it sounds. I'm sorry. But I don't, because I refuse to give white people the power to say it around me, because, like, no. It is just like the AVE stuff, like, it comes in, like, your guys are trying to, it's the thing where you can, like, visit, like, black culture and then go away when it comes. Because, like, what's going to happen is you're going to turn around and it's like, oh, these words were, I used those words when I was a kid and I was younger and blah, blah, blah. It's like,
well, that's one of the things in this episode, too, like, because, like, Will and Carlton can go back to Bel-Air.
Right.
That's the part I like. I don't know why the guys that at Jazz's place aren't a little bit more annoyed about this context, because it's like they're using the trip to Compton as like a field trip basically, and it would insult me, like, 'cause it's like, yeah, you're black, but like, you know nothing about this neighborhood, like, we live here.
There's a class difference. They're using it like a zoo. Like, Will is like, hey, you won't believe what goes on over here, and Carlton's like, I could do it. Like, it is kind of gross, like that kind of setup.
But I do one of my favorite scenes. I really love the how many dream sequences they have in the season, because it's one of my favorite things. So we see Carlton returning to the house's C note, which results in Will getting choked by Uncle Phil, the cops trying to arrest Carlton, and Carlton whipping out his nunchucks and screaming that they won't take him alive.
Yes. I was like, wow, this show is different than I remember. Then Will woke up.
Well, and I love Carlton is like, there's a scene where he's stealing stuff off of the piano and Jeffrey tries to stop him, and Carlton like just punches him in the gut. It was my favorite scene.
Yes. And I was like, oh my God.
It was such like a tactile hit. It wasn't like a glance. It was just boom, like, yo, what?
But yes, it's a nightmare, and Will wakes up screaming in Jazz's house. Yeah. So back at the house, the Bankses are heading to church, and we see a little glimpse into Jeffrey's sordid personal life when he comes in wearing all leather and singing Madonna's "Justify My Love." So I think he was coming back from an orgy or some sort of S&M club. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Hey, well, you know, the weekends are his time, and I'm sorry, like, that's what he wants to be like. One, I think it would take a lot to dress up and down in that outfit. Mm-hmm. That's a lot. That's just a lot. And, you know, if that's what he wants to do, it's his off time.
Right? They were judging him on his own time off, like, after doing so much for them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No raises. Like,
no.
Geez. Yeah.
And I hate that that's, like, a common joke in it, like, him not getting paid properly. Like, like, pay him the money, like...
Oh, man. It's like, pay him more, damn it. But Will returns and tells Aunt Viv and Uncle Phil what has happened. And Phil sends Will off to get Carlton because Uncle Phil does not want to keep bailing out Will, which I totally admire. Like, he has to solve his own problems. Mm-hmm. But I thought it was sweet that Carlton would return to Bel-Air when he found out Jeffrey was injured. Like, I know it's a joke, but, like, it was still really sweet that Carlton was like, are you being serious? Okay, we're going. And I just love that. Like, it was really sweet. Because they do see him as family, even if they tease him a lot, too. Yeah. So he's the family, and he, like, cooks and cleans and sucks up after everybody. So.
Yeah. Well, what's weird is, like...
Oh, yeah.
And like, when when I was watching this, I was like, yeah, they don't have cell phones. Like, it's just... Yeah. It's so wild to me now thinking, like, I've now lived long enough where I've had cell phones longer than I haven't. Yeah. And, like, this would have happened. The first thing you would have done was, like, why didn't he get a text? But, like, there was no text. I don't think there was, like, beepers you could use at the time.
Yeah, like pages.
This is a wild world. Like, if something like this happens, like, oh, shit, I guess this is just going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
Okay, I was watching this movie, Funny Games. Thriller, intense thriller, and one of the characters cut the phone wire. And I was like, damn, that was a big deal. Like, you guys just had one phone, like, sitting there. Like, if someone broke in, like, that's terrifying. Like, now, like, if they're filming that today, it'd be totally different, right? Like, they can't, that element of just, like, snip, like, there's no communication coming into this house is terrifying. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. And how long of a ride would it be from Bel-Air to Compton? Like, probably a bit of a trip. Like, because we assume he goes in his car or something. But, yeah. The best scene of the show is Vivian coming to Jazz's house and telling everyone that they aren't going to MacArthur Park, which I assume by Tiny's reaction they don't end up doing anyway. So,
yeah.
She definitely comes in mother hen, like, mother of the church, like, yo, y'all, what is this house? Look at this house, clean it up. Yeah. Like, you're not going down there. And I have definitely been on this. It's like the thing when your aunt comes in the room and you guys are going to do something bad. She's like, no, you're not. And y'all got to clean up this room because it's a mess.
And you're like and then she's like, nope, not happening.
Well, they made her miss church. She's pissed. Like, you know, like, she had to come there, like, in her church clothes. She took off her earrings. Like, she's angry. So, but and then there's this really, really uncomfortable bit where Will's friends call him out for acting pale and being a sellout for telling on Carlton. And so it was really hit me because I have heard that from friends because I don't think a lot of white people would get why Will's friends saying he was acting pale is a big insult, because it's the same thing that happens on my res too, where people will insult you for acting white. And so it's such a big thing, and so I was really, really surprised by that because I was getting uncomfortable for Will too, and I'm like, wow.
He sounded genuinely mad, upset when they were questioning his blackness, and then Carlton tags on at the end, that's how you made me feel.
Right.
And I feel that I'm glad that they acknowledged that because that is the show also thinks it's a joke. Whenever Will makes those jokes, laugh tracks play for a long amount of time. They think that's funny, and it was nice to see the show be well, as we'll have our little laughs, but this is not we shouldn't be fighting each other over blackness.
Yeah, and I think there's an episode that comes in. I want to say it's in 2 more seasons. That kind of really deals with it, where you kind of have a lot more of a malicious look at it, and it's not Will, it's somebody else calling Carlton out on well, you're not really a brother thing, and it's always, like I said, it's always foolishness because the people in power, they don't care what part you're from, right? They just see that
you're black.
There are things as black people we're able to joke with each other about when it comes to our I was gonna say our skin race, but that's the bad way of saying that. But the hue of our skin, right? When someone says oh, you acting really light skinned right now, there's a personality to it. But we know we're not saying oh, you're acting white. We're saying oh, you're acting how most light skinned people may act, or how most dark skinned people may act. We do that to ourselves, but our skin folk is our kinfolk, right? That's the thing where we have a set priority, but then when you use something like this, it takes it too far because what you're doing is you're excluding somebody from your race when you shouldn't. And it's something that's very it shouldn't be done.
Good thing, yeah. Because I wish I had some they get a stern talking to from the parents, and I really wish I had a person like Uncle Phil when I was a kid who could talk to me the way he talks to Carlton. It was always difficult for me feeling like I wasn't native enough for my res. So having somebody tell me that I am native and that's who I am and no one can change that would have been something that would have been really powerful for me to have, especially in the because he doesn't say it in an insulting way to Carlton or Will, but it's just it's such a a reaffirming thing, and I wish more people would say that to kids when they're dealing with these types of issues.
Especially,
go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, especially him not bailing Will out, because Will is always getting into mishaps, crazy situations each episode.
Well, and especially when Vivian told him, you're always sorry, when are you going to grow up? And then he's like, I'm sorry. So, he's still being a goofy kid, but, one of the best lines in this episode, though, is when Carlton criticizes Will for not living up to some rule of blackness that he carries around. I thought that was, the best bit of writing in this episode, so it was beautiful.
I thought, and I think, Will kind of does it, hand wave, he hand waves it off, he's oh, hey, you judged me. But I thought Carlton brought up a really good point. It's you're just upset because you don't think I am this portrayal of blackness. And again, like what you said earlier about when, we're in a space, in the gaming space, it is something that I think, I often think, and I shouldn't have to, but it's am I portraying something that I'm not? Especially because we're in a space full of white people. Mm-hmm. And I never want again, I speak how I speak because I'm a kid that's from I'm a kid that's from that was born in Germany, that lived in the Netherlands, then came to the South. But my family roots, my dad is from Mobile, Alabama. My mom is from Miami, Florida. I'm a country boy. And there are things that I say, but I know how to maneuver myself around and not say them as publicly or speak as publicly as I would normally want to. But I always question myself, am I doing this? Is this fair for me? Am I representing myself right? Am I representing black people right? Because I wouldn't want somebody who is a black kid who was born in Mobile, Alabama, and who sounds like my little brother sounds to be ostracized in a space that we're in. because he doesn't sound like how every other white person sounds. So that's something I do think about. But at the end of the day, like he says, like I can't turn it off. Like if I'm on camera, I'm a black person. If I'm on a podcast, I'm a black person. So like it doesn't matter what I feel about it. I am a black person. I just have to do what I can do to continue pushing forward.
That's the best way to think about it too. Like whenever I'm writing pieces, like I throw in all the slang that I use, and because I just like write how I talk, and I like editors can like comb out like how like my voice to kind of like fit their site's tone more, but like I will not stop writing the way I speak. And a lot of the times people are like, we want to keep this in, but like we can't really, or like sometimes people are like, we have to cut this, but I'm glad you like put this in. But it is like, I would rather just fully be myself than try to fit inside a box of like what white people might think blackness is, or like trying to represent every single black person, because that's not what I'm trying to do. Till I think your way of going about it is really smart too, like thinking of like people, black kids that like maybe don't feel included in spaces like games and entertainment and stuff, and there's a criticism around that, and like conversations around that, like making sure that they can just be like, hey, I can do something like that. Because you really like growing up reading games and stuff, I don't know, I didn't see any black people until like pretty far into me like staying up to date with games, and it's people, like Gita and Austin Walker I saw first, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's black people in this industry, and you find out like more of those, and there's a few, but it's like, yeah, you as like one of the few visible black people in this sphere, like we gotta make sure it's a space where other black people can just feel comfortable. And I don't know, like I would willingly like sacrifice a bunch of my white audience and doing that, because like I don't know, I made a tweet a while ago. 2 test tweets. I made a tweet of Emperor Palpatine, and he's standing like this, and I said, how niggas stand and pose for Instagram or whatever, and that got like 30 likes or whatever. And then I was like, okay, since there's non-black people here, like if you replace niggas with dudes, it gets way more traction, because people are just like, I don't know. So I did the same thing, and then I use it as like a control, and then like another one. I was like, okay, like let's do the science behind this thing. And I was just like, yeah, it feels weird that like tweets with the word nigga in them perform less well than other tweets, but it's like, you know what, I'll put that word in because like I want my people to feel seen, and like I want to speak how I want to speak. Like I don't care about the numbers if like I'm gonna say that. But it is just weird to notice that and like see how being yourself like automatically lowers your numbers a bit. Like
exactly.
It's weird as a black
like,
person.
Well, and it makes you feel that like your audience is small. Like it again is that idea of white people being the default. That's the thing. Right. Yeah. But yeah, we've come to the end of the episode. Yeah, like it was a really good one. So yeah, like
I'm so sorry that we kept using it longer than we should. Like I was like, oh man, no, I know you had a hard out. So but it's been really great. I'm really glad to have you on the show, honestly.
Please come back. Yeah, like check
out. Of course, whenever you guys need another person, I'm here. Like I will watch every episode of Fresh Prince.
Watch season 2 and whichever episodes you want to come on, we will get you on.
Absolutely.
I actually will. I was watching this and I'm like, the episodes are so short and sweet and full of so much like just family sitcom goodness, and I don't know. It reminded me of like how I would watch shows like this and The Proud Family and stuff when I was growing up, and I was like, these were the shows that made me feel seen. And like representation is its whole big conversation that you can get into, but like seeing like shows like this like really made my childhood, made me excited about just sitcoms and stuff, because I don't know, like you miss out on these things. Like sitcom as a whole are such like a white environment, and shit like this is what makes it so fun for me. Like I don't know.
Oh yeah, it's so great. Like it's one of my favorite things. Like again, like representation is important to everybody, because like I am not black, but this show was so important to me because the Bankses lived the way I wanted to, and like they were still dealing with the same issues that I did as a Native person, and so it's like it's such a good thing because it representation for all. Damn it.
It is.
Well, it honestly is. Yeah, and it's one of the reasons why like I don't know if I do the show without Sonya. Right, and I mean that honestly. Like I could have easily done this show with like 2 white people
with Antista or something.
Yeah, and then just like, oh, here's the show. But to me, it meant very important to have a person of color to be my co-host, especially a person of color who's a woman. I think that's very important. I think it's very important for me to reach out and get guests who are people of color. Like, does that mean that we're gonna not have white people? No, of course we are. Like, you guys have heard the show. Like, we're gonna have white people on because the show touched a lot of people. But I do think it is important, again, as we talk about representation, as this kind of became the podcast about representation, like, to let you know, like, there are ways of looking at media. There are ways to look at criticism and see them through the lens that represent you. And I hope someone who was listening to the show who may have thought, like, maybe I can't do a podcast, and listening where you hear 3 people of color on a podcast,
Get
like,
on
yeah,
that,
you can
yes.
do your podcast, make a podcast,
Please.
do something. And I can't wait for you to make something where I'd be like, wow, this person is so talented. I can't believe they're doing something so great. And I can't wait for that. But speaking of talented people, Funky, could you tell people where they can follow you and they can find all the great stuff that you do?
Oh yeah. You can follow me on Twitter at FunkAFly, and on Twitch at FunkAFly. I post my articles and stuff. I do some monthly articles for Pace Games, and I freelance a bunch of places. And I might be starting a cool little YouTube show soon, so be on the lookout for that. Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me on. This is like a really fun time on this Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, no, like I said, you are more than welcome. I know, like I said, I know Sonya just said it, and I will say it as well. Whenever you want to come back, you are more than happy to come back. We would love to have you on.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Sonya, do you have anything that you would like to promote or plug?
Just Twitter, honey_child. We're just discussing like issues related to transit right now, and like still trying to get Colt Cabana's number. Hey, hook me up, people! Damn it!
And I am at Travis L. Foster on Twitter. As you guys can't see. You guys can hear though. I have like a new setup now. Like I have a camera stand and a microphone stand. So I have been teasing on these episodes. I probably will have finally gone live. This work has been really busy. My new morning show, I'm not sure if we're going to make it weekly. I'm probably not doing it weekly. It might not be a daily thing. But the TL Foster morning show in the mornings, which is a great name, and I don't care what no one says.
It's awesome.
I want to do a morning show. I want to do 2 to 3 hours where I stream on Twitch. So twitch.tv/TurboBison, where I stream on Switch, and we kind of just hang out. I'm not sure we're going to play video games. I'm not sure we're just going to hang and listen to music. We might have Funky on. We will listen to that John Cena album. That would be kind of cool. That would be kind of cool. But I want to do some stuff. I want to do some really cool stuff. We have a lot of stuff in the works, and yeah. Turbo Bison.
Follow just now. Oh, you recommended Dan Emmerich. I have his book right here. This is
Dan Emmerich. Dan Emmerich is okay. Look, I know we've been going on. I just want to say this real quick. I want to say this on the podcast because Dan Emmerich is one of my favorite people of all time. And what's weird is I've been reading Dan Emmerich since I was literally 10 years old. I got a Game Pro, and that's when I first started reading Dan Emmerich. When I first got into this whole thing, one of the first people I reached out to was Dan. Just hey, hey Dan, I'm going to start this podcast, and he came out, and dude, he just went for like an hour and a half, and he was like, oh hey, I have to go do this Activision thing, but I'm going to just talk, and he's been great. I'm so glad to call him a friend. Awesome. Yeah, I love Dan Emmerich to death, and he's one of my favorite people in the world. So I just had to say that. I love Dan. I wanted to just put that out there. But for Funky, for Sonya, I am T.L. Foster. This has been Live from the Pool House. Don't get thrown out like jazz.
Later, y'all.